What's going on, everybody? And in today's video I'm going to be talking about the 2022 Cincinnati Bengals. But before we get into that, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. So let's begin. So obviously, if you read the title of the video, I do not think the Cincinnati Bengals will be making the playoffs in 2022. This isn't even really a bold prediction. This is really what I think is going to happen. I predict, I sincerely believe that they will not make the playoffs. And that may sound, like stupid right now, but I'm going to lay out all the reasons why I do not think this team is going to make the playoffs and why they're being a little bit overhyped coming into this season, and that it's going to ultimately set them up for disappointment. Now, most of you know that I am a Chiefs fan, so, some of you may think, he's just saying this because he's hating on the Bengals because they knocked out the Chiefs in the conference championship game. Look, I'm salty about that game, but I'm really not. This is really not out of being upset about the Chiefs losing to them. I truly believe this, and I think once I present my reasons to you, you may feel the same. So without further ado, let's begin. So first off, I want to talk about is Joe Burrow is currently not practicing for the Bengals, and he had to remove his appendix in a surgery. So right now he is not practicing, and he probably will not be playing in the preseason. So, he's going to come in week one not having practice or getting up to speed with the offense for the past month. And he already knows the offense, obviously, but still, he may be a little bit rusty to start off the season, and that can make a difference. But that's not my big reason, but that's something I wanted to throw out there. The next thing I want to talk about is Jesse Bates is holding out because of contract disputes. If Jesse Bates ends up not playing, they lost their starting safety. And even if he does come to play, maybe he won't be in shape. And, in my opinion, Jesse Bates, is slightly overrated for how good he is anyway when he was on the field. Last year, when quarterbacks threw in his direction, he allowed a 122 passer rating. That is really bad, and he only had one interception. So obviously it's better he plays than he doesn't because he's their starting safety, but I don't think he's really all that to begin with, and I think it would be a mistake to give him a big contract. But it's either that or he doesn't play. The other thing is Ricardo Allen retired this offseason, their other safety, their veteran safety, who was much better than Jesse Bates was last year. He retired, so he won't be there either. They really did not improve their secondary. Their top corner, statistically based off of last year, believe it or not, was Eli Apple. Mike Hilton was not good. So this secondary has issues. Their front seven, for whatever reason, was able to generate some good pass rush despite the lack of depth. But I question how well this unit is going to be able to stop the run. They really lack, good stud players in that front seven, meaning linebackers and defensive line. So I question their defense going into this season. That's another thing that I have with this team. And then the offensive line, we all know that they had a huge offensive line problem last year, and they were able to get through it and still make it to the Super Bowl and only lose by a field goal. So, yes, but I don't think you can survive another season with that kind of old line, especially with a quarterback who's already a little banged up. And now I get the narrative is that their O-line is fixed, that they've overhauled the O-line. They really haven't overhauled the O-line. Sure, they've made a couple of tweaks. They signed La'el Collins, they signed Alex Chapa, but La'el Collins missed a little bit of last year, and La'el Collins will be a good right tackle or left tackle, however they choose to use him. But then Alex Chapa, I really don't think Alex Chapa with the Bucs was as good. I think he was more of a, plug and play for the Bucs, and for him to be an every down starter for them isn't really ideal, and they really didn't fix enough of the O-line. So yes, the O-line has gotten better this offseason, but I don't think it's going to be a drastic improvement like what we saw with the Chiefs offensive line last year after a rough 2020. So there's that with the O-line. But then on top of all this, they're in a very tough division. This is the second toughest division in football, in my opinion, the AFC North. And if not for the AFC West, I think this division would get talked about some more. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens last year went 8-9. I get that, but they were an extremely banged up team. They were missing their quarterback. They were missing their top two running backs. They were missing some receivers. They were missing a lot of players on defense. Their top two corners, their top safeties, their D line went through some missing players. So that team dealt with a lot last year. And the fact that they went 8-9 was impressive. I think a healthy Baltimore Ravens team will be a very bad matchup for the Bengals. The Steelers, I think, will be better this year than they were last year, because I think regardless, Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett is better than what Ben Roethlisberger was last year. The Cleveland Browns, I think, are still going to be a tough team to play with or without Deshaun Watson, because they have a good running game and they have a good defense. So there's that. And in my opinion, this may sound crazy, but I think that it's not far-fetched to say that the Cincinnati Bengals will finish last in their own division. I think best case scenario, they go 3-3 within their division, but I think the possibility to go 1-5 or 2-4 in their division is there. And then the next thing I want to talk about that I think is going against this team is the Super Bowl hangover factor. Losing a Super Bowl is very, very tough to then bounce back the following year easy. Because, look, I get the 2021 Chiefs were able to bounce back fine after the 2020 Super Bowl loss. But the difference was the Chiefs had won a Super Bowl the year before. I think it makes a massive difference when you won a Super Bowl already with this core very recently, and then you lose one. Yeah, it still sucks to lose one, but winning one still gives you the motivation, I think, and the non-hangover to get back, like for the Chiefs. But you look at previous years before that, the 49ers, after losing to the Chiefs in 2019 season, they didn't make the playoffs in 2020. The Rams of 2018 that lost to the Patriots the following year didn't make it to the playoffs. The 2016 Falcons barely limped into the 2017 Falcons, after losing to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, barely limped into the playoffs and lost in the second round. And the 2015 Panthers also didn't make the playoffs after losing to the Broncos, and it goes on. The majority of Super Bowl losers have a rough season the next year. So, putting all this together, the Super Bowl hangover, the tough division, the offensive line question marks, the defensive question marks, whether it's with Jesse Bates or Ricardo Allen retiring or the lack of players, the Joe Burrow not practicing, all that, I think adds up to, something that's going to be tough for the Bengals to overcome. And then to add to this, and this may seem unfair, and I can't take this away from them because they did make it to the Super Bowl, but this is a team that overachieved last year. They really did. They were a 10-7 team that was very fortunate that their division rivals in the Browns and the Ravens dealt with many, many injuries. The healthy Browns beat the crap out of the Bengals when they played in the middle of the season. I have no doubt in my mind, if the Ravens and Browns stayed healthy, the Bengals would not have won their division, yet alone maybe not make the playoffs. So they kind of fed off of those teams. And then once they made it into the playoffs, things just started clicking and going their way. I mean, they beat the Titans, and because Ryan Tannehill practically gave them the game. And then the Chiefs just kind of, my guess is as good as yours of what happened that second half with the Kansas City Chiefs. But I feel like this was a team that just suddenly things started going their way, kind of like the 2007 Giants or the even 2011 Giants, where things just started going their way. Again, that's not taking anything away from their magical run, but I think it is a team that truly did overachieve last year of what they should have been. I think there was at least 3 or 4 teams in the AFC last year that were no doubt a better overall football team than them. So there's that also. So putting all that into consideration, I truly believe this Bengals team is a 7 or 8 win team next year. That may sound insane, but my prediction for them is 7-10, 8-9, maybe 9-8 if they can, scratch some, gritty win or two together. But I think this team's going to have a rough year. Now, for the long term, down the road outlook, in my opinion, for the Bengals, I think they'll be fine. Joe Burrow's a clutch quarterback. The O-line will get better over the next couple of drafts. Jamar Chase is a special talent. So I think this team will be fine in the long run and be a competitive team in the long run. But I think in this immediate future, this upcoming season, they're going to have a rough, disappointing year. Comment down below what you guys think about this. I feel pretty confident with saying this team will not make the playoffs, but who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. But comment down below what you think. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time.